Hello, and welcome to Coffee and Conversation. I'm Julie Nelson. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for Great Rivers United Way. Today's session is on how to communicate with your kids and your grandkids, how to engage them in conversation. And our speakers today are from the Parenting Place and the YMCA. They are Michael Scott, Rachel Segursma, and Brittanie Hunt. So please welcome them to today's session.
We have three objectives that United Way really focuses in on with both funding and programming, our own programming. One of them is connectedness, so social connectedness. We try to fund programs that connect people to health resources, both physical and mental, which is that social connectedness. And then we also have Great Rivers Hub, which is very key in connecting people to those health resources. Another one is thriving households, so economic thriving. So we fund programs that do job training. We food insecurity and housing and all that kind of stuff comes out of what that community investment campaign produces in our fundraising, and then how we allocate those funds out. But the third objective is our youngest community members. And so when we talk about coming here today to talk about those community members, how do we talk to them? How do we interact with them? And that's really important to us. I mean, we fund programs that stop child abuse. We fund programs that concentrate on prepping kids for kindergarten or creating a special bond between a parent and a child. So this one fits right in. And programming from United Way deals with a lot of that early childhood standpoint, both from a Sparks collaborative to fundraising for books to get books into the hands of kids. We did that this spring, and that's happening now. And then in Crawford County, we run a Dolly Parton Imagination Library program that gets free books into the hands of kids 0 to 5 every month. And so Crawford County businesses pay for that. And we're just all about early childhood. It's one of my passions. And ironically, a lot of the early childhood programming that United Way runs is run by Julie Nelson. So this is a perfect topic for that. So I'm hoping we get excellent golden nuggets to take from here. I myself have 5 grandchildren under the age of 10. So this is key for me too.
Well, here you talk about your little communication barriers. I do have a little trick that I learned when talking to boys and to men for that matter as well. The trick is no eye contact. Do something else while you're talking to them. Shoot hoops, play video games, go for a hike. I heard that little tip, and I use it with. I'm working with a father who was the CPS case, and we started meeting, across the table, and I'm like, this isn't working at all. So we started going for hikes, and the communication opened up. So that's a little trick I've learned. I'm passing it on to you. Just to kind of let you know what we got going on here at the parent, it's important for again, that one tip, that's a good one. When it comes to boys, no eye contact. Definitely use that one. The other thing that I would say would be, it's important to start to talk to kids about feelings early on. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to start out talking about their feelings, because that can sometimes be a little difficult to talk about. But oftentimes, if you are reading stories or watching movies, when you're done, ask some questions. How do you think so-and-so felt when this happened to them? Or how do you suppose this person felt when this happened? It starts to open that line of communication, and they're starting to talk about feelings, and it's just kind of getting that door open a little bit where you can then start talking about their feelings. And yeah, it's never too soon just to talk about that. I suppose I guess I'm just gonna I'll just open it up for questions, and you can ask whatever. Let me know what you might be struggling with, and I'll see if I can help.
Can I share something quick?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I think what I've found has been most helpful for any age group is trying to be more of an active listener. Like just listening to them, especially it sounds like some of you grandparents have a closer relationship with your grandchild than they do with their parents. I know sometimes that's because you might be able to just sit there and listen, and sometimes I know myself as well, like as a parent, you don't always listen to your child. You just like react to what they're doing, and I think children value that and feel respected when you're able just to slow down and listen to them and help them reflect on whatever they're going through.
Do you have some good conversation starters for us?
Is there a line that grandparents shouldn't cross, I guess? I mean, I know there kind of is, but you know, when a almost 10-year-old grandson constantly says he doesn't like school, he doesn't have any friends, I mean, he leans toward the dramatic. I assume he says the same thing to his parents, but is there any, I mean, should we be emphasizing that to his parents? Should we be, you know, assuming they already know? Is it okay to say to an almost 10-year-old, hey, if you ever feel like you need to talk, just find, you know, borrow mom's phone and give me a call? I mean, I just, as they get older, you know, that double digit number, what changes? And I know you talked about how the teenagers are getting quieter as they get to that age. Where is that? How do we navigate that change? That's a pretty general question.
Well, I think that you know, any kind of communication is good, and if they are reaching out to you, that's awesome, you know, and it just to not let them have them, that they know that line of communication, that support is there for them, and that's really important.
Yeah, and do you ask like him follow-up questions like, why don't you like school, or like what things are going on, or do you ask him those questions to get more information, or is he willing to share that?
Yeah, and that's where the I just don't have any friends comes in, or, you know, I'm bored, or those kinds of answers come back. And so again, I'm not like calling up his mother and saying, did you know this is terrible? I mean, and I don't want to be dramatic about the reaction either, but I guess in general, you know, is there something, I mean, it's consistent, but is there something that's just like obviously red flags? I know red flags, but you know, I guess I'm just curious when you do pick up the phone and talk to the parents without alienating the parents.
I think another problem we run into is, you know, I notice it with my kids. If I ask them to call someone on the telephone where they actually have to talk, they are terrified for some reason. I think they're just so used to emailing and texting that when it comes to vocalizing, using their voice, it freaks them out. So I think that is kind of a barrier. So, you know, if they're comfortable with text, you know, use that as a tool, but then use that as kind of to open the door to that you know, verbal conversation. But I think we see that a lot with young people. You know, I've seen, you know, teenagers, they're communicating to each other, but they're texting each other and saying them things on their phones. So it's strange days.
Yeah, so we're kind of heading into teen territory a little bit, which is more Brittany's expertise. So anyone here can pop in, but I think what we're getting at is, to what extent am I as the adult the problem solver? Oh, your school is terrible. You can't make friends. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? You know, when is it, do we listen, and how do we get them to tell us enough that we can guide a little bit without saying, well, here's what you should do.
I'm gonna just mention that if they're a book reader or a video watcher and you have, I don't know if you have suggestions, because I would love some suggestions, but if you can get them to explore something in the popular media that speaks to, I don't have any friends or I'm bored in school, I think that's a really good door opener to talk. Or if there's somebody that has expressed the same things, that's one of their, that they follow, like for my older son, he follows these people on internet, and we got into a whole discussion around sexual harassment, around one of his influencers was being accused of something, and he was able to open up to us to tell the story of what was happening to this person, and it led to a great conversation. But it's like a really foreign thing to me, because I have no idea, like I don't follow any influencers. I don't even know what that term is as an influencer. So it was, but it was, it opened the door to his being able to do problem solving by thinking about what this guy was doing and how he was going to do it. So maybe that's just a suggestion.
I'm going to share a personal experience. So I've had the same struggles with my teenage kids, and I think that, I'm competing with that screen because they're always connected with their friends and other people that they like to follow. I don't even know if they follow me, but one thing that we did a couple of years ago is we went up to the pizza farm up near Fountain City. And I tell you, it was a great experience because they could not get cell phone coverage, and it took forever for our pizza to come. So here I had all three kids, and we had this great conversation. And it's been a couple of years, and I'm still basking in the glory of that conversation we had out in the woods, where they had no contact to the outside world. It was just us.
Good morning, this is Bob. I have a question regarding confidentiality, and let me put a little setting in this. We have an 18-year-old son who's looking at beginning military service and university attendance. We talk about a lot of things pretty openly, even though he's an introvert. Give us a little guidance or suggestions about how confidential should I be between our grandson and his mom and dad.
My thoughts are, so your grandson is 18?
Yes.
Okay. I would, personally for me, if it's like a safety issue or something to do with his health, I guess I would share that information. Like, otherwise, if he's technically an adult, and if he's coming to you as a safe person to talk to and you have that relationship, yeah, I think unless you feel like something should be shared, like it's vital to his health or his mental well-being, I think you can keep it confidential if that's, or ask him if it's okay to share.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of piggyback off that, Rachel, if you don't mind. I guess in my experience, like, because I felt I had a fairly good, relationship with my grandparents, and there was anything that, if it wasn't health related or any emergent thing, like you said, like my grandparents would ask me, do you want me to share this with your parents? Because sometimes as grandparents, you are that mediator between parent and child. It's easier to talk to grandparents, and if you ask for their permission, that might be exactly what they need. But if they say no, that's just, I really would like to keep that between, you guys. I think that's important too. So just asking them is always good.
And one thing I would just add too is, so if there is a safety concern that does come up, so just like Rebecca said, like if first asking if it's not a safety concern, like, oh, is this something you want me to share with mom or dad? But if it is a safety concern, knowing that that's something that you probably do need to talk with mom and dad about. So phrasing it less of a question, and I'm like, hey, I think this would be something that's really important for mom and dad to know, especially if they're a minor in that situation. But this is something that it would be important for mom and dad to know. Do you want me to just talk with them, or do you want to be with me when we tell them? So using the language less of like when it's something that you know in your gut feeling that you need to tell someone else, using the not asking the question just because if you ask and they say no, you still have to ask. Yep. So using that, and then your trust is kind of severed too. If they say no, don't share this, but you know you have to. So phrasing it more of like, this is something that's really, I care about your safety. This is something that's really important that we get you the help you need right now. Do you want me to call for you, or do you want to be with me when we have that conversation? And giving them that choice in that situation too. But otherwise, yeah, I agree with Rachel and Rebecca, what they mentioned also.
That is a great tip. So Brittanie too, what's kind of normal teenage behavior of, teens withdrawing, and to what extent is this part of their growth and we should just let them be introverts and not expect them to relate to us? And to what extent should we get in there a little bit more and keep trying and looking for some conversation?
Yeah, and I have kind of a PowerPoint too, so I don't know, I don't want to infringe on the younger's conversation, so I don't know if we want to transition right now or come back to this conversation. What do we think?
Why don't you do this right now and then we'll come back to the youngers?
Okay, we'll just kind of flip order. So I can share my screen. Okay, and I'll pull up my PowerPoint here. And this is just, and can everybody see this? I just want to double check before I start talking. Okay. So this is just a PowerPoint that I can share also with Julie and I have some resources at the end. So if there's anything that you would like more resources on, or anything, you'll have access to all of this eventually too. So first, just starting with a brief self-reflection, because I think my philosophy is whenever we're working with other people, that's a two-person relationship. And so it's important for us to know, kind of check in with ourselves first, and continuously throughout that process as we work on building relationships with others. And then kind of to Julie's mention now, talking a little bit about the brains of teens that we're with, and then the power of relationships. So as a brief self-reflection, I'll just ask you to think about the people with whom you enjoy spending your time. If you can picture a couple of people, have those in your mind now. And then reflecting on what qualities do they have in common. So we can take just a moment if you want to unmute, since we have a small group, or if anyone wants to add something into the chat, just a couple of word or short phrase of what the people that you enjoy spending time with, what their qualities are. Oops, I went ahead here. Touched the wrong button. Pulling up the chat. So good listeners. Yeah, I hear lots of listeners. Authenticity. Someone that's positive. And talkers. So someone that you can feel free to talk with. Yeah, thank you for sharing those. And I apologize, when I was pulling up the chat, I clicked onto the next slide. But some other examples of qualities are some that might come to mind, are people that are accepting of you, that show that they care and value you, help you feel like you're yourself around them, that it's okay to make mistakes and they'll still be there. And people that are just fun to be around. You enjoy spending time or doing activities together. So similarly, we think of what the qualities of people we enjoy spending time with. That's the same for teens, and that they want someone that is accepting of them, that shows that they value, that they can be themselves around, and that they can make mistakes with, and that they'll still be there. Oops, trying to move. So I just have a short video. I'll stop sharing so I can share that one quick. And we'll just watch a portion of it. And the reason, so this talks a little bit about adolescent brain. So oftentimes when we think of adolescence, we can kind of get that or grumble because it's like we think of immediately like risk taking and maybe like hygiene issues and just like being angsty and all of that, and which is a part of it and it's legitimate, and there's a lot more. It's not the only story. So I will share my screen to watch just part of this quick video here. So can everyone see the YouTube right now?
Yep.
So I will start.
The adolescent period is absolutely amazing. People often give it a negative approach, saying, oh, it's a time where adolescents are going to lose their mind, or they're just immature, or raging hormones drive them crazy. These are all not only wrong, but they're myths that mislead us and actually disempower us. Whether we're adults or adolescents, they actually give us the wrong message and they make it so there's nothing we can do. So what is actually the truth? The truth is that instead of raging hormones, what's happening is we have remodeling in the brain in ways we never could have predicted. We now understand two big things are happening in the brain, things you as an adult can support adolescents in developing well. And if you're an adolescent, you actually can use this to help your brain grow in an optimal way. What are those two things? The brain is pruning itself. So imagine that in childhood, you're growing like a tree and establishing all these branches and all these leaves are growing. In the brain, that means connections among the basic cell, the neuron, called synapses, are being established. And you're soaking in the knowledge of the world. And that's beautiful. The tree is just growing, growing, growing. But then what happens that surprised everyone is the brain begins to prune itself. You start carving away some of those leaves, some of the smaller branches, even some of the larger branches. And the reason for the pruning is to specialize the brain. While the child is developing in ways that are really generalized, learning everything they can about everything they can, an adolescent is going to begin to find their passion, to actually find things they like, things they really love doing, and to drive their development in that way.
Okay, so we'll just end with that. I've included this video also in the presentation, so you'll be able to see that also. I think it says it's paused. So sorry for the back and forth. I'll share my screen again. Wasn't able to go back. There we go. We should be. So why did I show you about brain? So one, just like it's helpful before you drive a car to know generally about what does what, like the steering wheel turns the wheels, you push the ignition to make the wheels turn. It's helpful when you're thinking about relationships with teens to know just a little bit about what's going on in their brain and how this is, yes, it's a time when there's a lot of changes developmentally, physically, but there's a lot of amazing things happening in their brain when they've gone through their whole childhood and it's working on learning a little bit of everything. Adolescence is really that time where they can focus on and try to figure out what is important to them and who are they and who do they want to become. So some key quick takeaways is that adolescence is an awesome time. And so it's teens can begin to find their passion and things that they enjoy. So that was something that I loved that you meant, or that I apologize, Sherry mentioned, and with her son is like connecting with gaming and that, and maybe getting out of your comfort zone. So seeing what adolescents are trying out and what they might enjoy, whether that's sports or gaming or specific books. And if it's a time when they don't know, maybe doing just like what Michael mentioned, is doing an activity together. Kids through adolescence learn a lot through doing activities. And so trying out something new together, whether that's cooking. I love that the Parenting Place did different cooking experiences through or virtually together. And so trying something new and using that as a bridge and a relationship builder. Also, the brain is remodeling. So the experiences that teens have literally changes their brain to tell them what is important and what do I need to know, and then working on doing, and the more we use those areas of our brain, the better we get at them. So this is bringing back to the conversation that we were just having more about the power of relationships. So a big piece with adolescence and just acknowledging relationships in general is that relationships evolve over time, and that can often be a good thing, in that we don't want, thinking about your friendships and romantic relationships, you don't want your relationship to be stagnant throughout your whole life. And just like that with kids, our relationships evolve over time too. And so a big piece with teenagers is acceptance and the way that we approach them. So showing that unconditional love that you have for them when they're babies and cute toddlers, and then elementary age, still honing in on that unconditional love that you have and acceptance. And doing that helps create a space for teens where they can learn and grow and try new things. So I think it's beautiful that when the more healthy adults that we can have in a child's life, the better. And so that looks like parents, that looks like grandparents. And the more that we can create that accepting space, the more likely they will be to reach out when they need help and just connect and lean on relationships in order to grow. And then the way that we approach teens is important to do so in a way that has more curiosity. So it can be easy when there's so many different things going on, and like especially with issues that teens are facing, like with TikTok, or so and so didn't snap me or like my page, and like things that I didn't even have to deal with when I was a teenager, and things that are so different like that. And so approaching conversations, and just anytime you talk with your teen or are with your teen, with a spirit of curiosity. And then as they are wrestling with working to discover who they are. And I appreciated someone also mentioned just listening and creating that space. So teens are often less talkative than they were, where you have the little toddler that's asking why and why and why for everything, because they don't know and they're seeing it for the first time, versus teens are going through a lot, and talking is something that they're kind of thinking a lot in their brains at that time. So talking will likely be different. So how can you still spend time with your grandkid and maybe try out different experiences, and just knowing that they will talk when they need to, and just being okay with ourselves with being in silence and doing something together sometimes too. Just having a safe adult just to be around is also impactful for teens too. And then with that, maintaining a sense of calm. So when teenagers can have experience, because of all the changes that they have, they can experience mood swings that aren't related to you. It's just going because it's biologically things are changing. So doing what we need to do as adults to not match their mood changes, but to kind of maintain ourselves and allow them, because that creates a safe space for when they are regulated again to come back and be with us. And then talking about keeping an open mind, being present, and then using affirmations, where even as adults, you can see probably in your work experience that all of us have different levels of wanting to be affirmed in the work that you do. And so teens still need that too. So congratulating them when they do something really, really well, and noticing when they're working really hard, or when how they're being a good friend. And affirmations can be particularly strong when we notice things, rather than saying something like good job, which is just general, really focusing on like, wow, I really saw that you worked really hard on that science project, or I know that math is not your favorite, but you have been studying a lot and I can tell that you care about it. So with curiosity and acceptance, first just taking a deep breath and slowing down. It's okay that things are different right now, and silence and just being in presence with someone is also powerful. And like I said before with Sherry, I really appreciated her mentioning connecting with their interests. And so if they are showing something that they're even a little bit interested in, go with that, and maybe ask if they can teach you how to play a video game, or teach you what is an influencer, like, and why are they important to you? How do they talk, or how do they play games that make you want to do it more? And with what and how questions. So adolescents are naturally more, and there's been research done too about perceiving neutral faces as judgmental. So that's just something that's good to know as adults, in that the more curious that we can approach our relationships with them, the better. And so asking what and how questions more than or as much as possible can be helpful. So for example, like what is it about soccer that's making you not want to go anymore, versus why don't you want to play soccer? Like, can you hear the two differences? And like, I want to know why you don't want to play soccer. I don't mean to be judgmental, but how that could come off to a teen of like, well, now I'm not good enough because now I don't want to play soccer. So changing our language a little bit to saying like, okay, what's been going on at soccer that's different? Or what is something that you don't like about soccer anymore? Or how has soccer changed that makes you not want to be there? And then speaking to a question that was brought up too about noticing significant changes, and that some of the mood swings and withdrawal is typical for teens, but also noticing when it might be something that is of concern. So immediate signs of concern could be just any time that there's a threat of harm. So if it's thoughts or impulses, or actually harming yourself or others, or making plans to do so, or if there's a situation where you're just very out of touch with reality. So I included some specific mental health resources here, as well as La Crosse area resources. So a really excellent resource is the crisis text line. And so you can text hello, you can text hey, you can text whatever to the 741-741 anytime, any day, and someone will respond immediately. And then also the National Suicide Lifeline is listed too, as well as our local resources. And then these, I know we're running close to time. These are just additional resources for articles and websites, video resources, and some print books, note with the books, there's really not very many. And in doing research and trying to find books for grandparents, there is a really big gap on that. And I personally haven't read, I've looked at the websites and videos, but I haven't personally read these print resources. So just a caveat there, and that I haven't vetted them ahead of time, but did looked up the authors and things as much as possible. And I'll just have my personal contact information in case there's any specific resources that you would be interested in. I would be happy to follow up with anyone too. And I know that was a lot of me talking, but kind of main takeaways are approaching knowing that adolescence is challenging and wonderful. And so when we approach things with, I know someone mentioned, or I think that was Michael in the chat, of people that you like to be around are positive. So when we think of something in a positive frame, that can help it be positive. Like if I'm thinking, oh, today is going to be awful.
That's our coffee and conversation for today. As always, if you have any ideas of some topics you'd like to see addressed in the future, just let me know. Shoot me an email at jnelson@gruw.org. Have a great day.
Come and get it.